I think we have to ask ourselves, is this actually healing? Is this part of the healing process?
It's like, what kind of healing do you want, and like how do we take it forward? One way is retributive justice, which we see when people want blood. I think that's not the way to go. The other way that we can look at is reparative justice. So when you want to repair relations between the person and the person whom the person offended.
What can we do about religious discrimination? What's existing out there? What's happening within us?
I think two things for me. I think as firstly, we need to understand that our words have effect. So we need to consider like the effects of our words before we even like mouth it, before we even like verbalize it. Second, when we come across like a different opinion, it's like we tend to be a bit like very defensive. And once we become defensive, then we start to like pigeonhole ourselves. So perhaps we can be more open, perhaps, be more open, like start to like really try to understand like, hey, why is this person like even thinking about it like in that particular way?
I think the main word for me is really curiosity, and having like just being curious about different people's experiences with religion, and not coming from a place of like, oh, you're different from me, like yours is wrong, but more of like, how does this go hand in hand with their life and how they conduct life? So I think one way that we can go about this is to just continually have more of these discussions from a young age. Because if these things are not cultivated from a young age, it will just become a habit not to even talk about it. And talking about all these things would be a taboo topic, which I really don't think it should be taboo.
And sometimes it's okay to admit that you don't know. If you don't know, just say you don't know. There's always people who will explain.
But at the ground level, everything can't be done by the government. So we need like civil society to step up, and ordinary people like us to step up and to kind of create those kind of safe spaces to heal together, to kind of make that space for each other and hold that space, not just breaking fast with your Muslim neighbor during Ramadan or during the fasting month, not just that, but going deeper and trying to understand that another person who has these kinds of beliefs, these kinds of mental models, these kinds of religion or faith, actually do go through the same trials and tribulations, the same difficulties that you are going through in life as well. There's a lot of commonalities between you and the person by virtue of you being a human being living in Singapore. From job security to, this COVID time, and from job security to, taking care of your family, to living a good life, to taking care of your children. All these things are things that everyone has to go through regardless of religion. And I think like sharing that peace and holding that space with people is very important, so that we can see that we are more similar to each other than we are different. And even if we are very different, those differences shouldn't frighten us. Those differences should actually make us appreciate diversity better and engage with it in a more plural way.
While we've been making these videos in the last few weeks, right, all of a sudden these incidents of religious discrimination, racial discrimination have started exploding, like you said, and so many voices in social media especially, but everywhere else, right? There's a lot of almost people wanting blood, people wanting revenge. I think one of the biggest videos that came out was actually in relation to your story, partially because it was the same person, your lecturer from Poly, was actually involved in one of those videos. And what's interesting here is just yesterday, at the time of this filming today, right, just yesterday, he's also put out a public apology. I wanted to ask you, like, what's your response to this? How do you feel? And especially what was going on inside you when all of that was big news just a few weeks ago?
In the first video, when he discriminated someone, people were saying, why would you tell people he's a lecturer? Him being racist has nothing to do with being a lecturer. And then I was like, okay, you need to know something. Because I've had stories from when I was young about my cousins getting discriminated, and then when the parents talked to the principal didn't do anything, and then they just went on with their lives. And that's just one story out of millions of people. And I was like, it has to stop. This has to stop. Every single interview I've done until now, I always say this, like when someone's racist, when someone is discriminating someone else, it can come from a place of misunderstanding, misinformation, maybe there are intolerance, right? But deep down, they're not bad people. But the act that they did was unacceptable. If you have to punish him, punish him. If you have to do something, do something. But at the end of the day, it should always lead back to education and like teaching them how to be better people. I kind of wish that people didn't burn him at stake. But I have to admit that when I posted that, I wanted him to be burned at stake. I was coming from a place of anger when I think about my parents, when I think about what I went through. But now that I'm more learned and I've talked to a lot of people, I just want to highlight that definitely, guys, we need to remember that not everyone is 100% bad. There's always good in people. I was like, maybe he's not that bad. And then sekali he didn't apologize. Then I'm like, okay, yeah. And then he apologized. And I did tear up a bit when I saw it because I've never seen a single person who got viral because they were racist. And then they were like, okay, guys, I apologize. It has never happened, not once in my life. Not even my teachers from school, not even my friends, not even the seniors that discriminated me, not once. And you have this senior lecturer burnt at stake for 2 to 3 weeks. Tainted all across social media. Every single MediaCorp channel was like interviewing me to talk about him, right? And he still got courage to say, guys, I want to apologize. And that is a good starting point. Like, I feel like he will set an example for everyone else. Like, guys, it's okay to mess up. And I was like, okay. So there's hope.
What do you guys think, especially, with what Nurul shared, this whole trajectory of discrimination, obviously the anger that we feel in reacting to this, and then healing. What's the connection with you guys, for you guys?
Yeah, I think healing is like a word that really resonates with me. You need to really look deep into yourself, because you need to look at your own flaws first and foremost before you kind of like point out another person's flaws. Sometimes I think that it's because we know deep down that we are guilty or shameful of having done certain acts ourselves in our past that promote religious or racial discrimination. And when I grow up and as I get more mature, I see all these instances blowing up in social media and all that. I think to myself that this healing has to be collective. It cannot be done alone. Like how you showed your emotions and your expressions, Nurul, like I'm sure you can sense that like it's that collective healing that we have here, that space to kind of like talk and heal together is very important, that space, so that when others see that healing happen, they can emulate it within their own social circles.
With all the incidences that have happened, I believe that it's brought a lot of anger into society, but I think that anger has been pent up for many, many years, many generations perhaps. For all the generations, for all the people who could not say what they actually thought in fear. Right now there's social media and there's an instance to talk about it and there are spaces to talk about it. So it very easily comes across as anger. But I think, personally, I think there's a limit to it as well. I think we have to ask ourselves, is this actually healing? Is this part of the healing process? Is it necessary? Or what else can we do?
Yeah, I think I resonate like a lot with what you said, and like it's like what kind of healing do you want, and like how do we take it forward? One way is retributive justice, which we see when people want blood, when people wanna just burn the person at the stake. I mean, that's retributive justice. You want retribution, you want vengeance, you want revenge. I think that's not the way to go. The other way that we can look at is reparative justice. So when you want to repair relations between the person and the person whom the person offended or assaulted or aggravated or discriminated against, repair that relation between. So Nurul, you and your lecturer has to repair the relations that you have that have been broken, and then the lecturer in your case has to repair the relations with society. So how society is going to repair that relation? So it's about relationship building. So how do you repair the relationships that have been broken in the act of discrimination or the act of religious discrimination or the act of religious prejudice? So I think these are some ways to go about it.
We are imperfect creatures. So we rely on emotions, we have biases. Sometimes we say things that might unintentionally like offend others. So I think by recognizing that we're imperfect creatures, right? Perhaps like that might actually give some leeway, for the person to be forgiven. Like how to facilitate this, perhaps bringing the principles of facilitation into schools, primary schools, secondary schools, JCs, teaching students how to hold conversations, how to discuss about very sensitive things, like mental health, like religious, like all this discrimination kind of thing. I think that's like a good step, forward. I think more importantly is really to like institutionalize, you know, like the education of like facilitation and having these safe spaces.
Guys, as we end off today, just wanted to ask you, right? So you've lived through your own encounters with discrimination. You've lived through this season when Singapore is watching, a lot of discrimination play out before our eyes as well. What is your dream for Singapore with regards to this?
I think my dream for this would be for Singapore to be really a diverse place of people who really respect and engage with diversity and do not shy away from differences, but at the same time recognize that amongst those differences a lot of commonality, like commonality in suffering, in trials and tribulations and difficulties. And I think in that place, in that sweet spot, we will see Singapore really progress, not just as a nation, but as a people together.
Okay, my dream is for us to keep having conversations without feeling the need to censor what we think. If you have prejudices about someone, just say, oh, by the way, I feel this about your religion and stuff. Say it out loud so that they have the chance to correct you. They can't correct you if they don't even know you had that kind of thinking. So I think that's a very light first step I want to take. Have these uncomfortable conversations so many times that it becomes comfortable for us to keep talking.
I think for me, it'd be like for all of us, you know, like taking the first step to actually, you know, like perhaps like go to those places of worship, you know, go and understand like why is this person like doing, why is this action, you know, what's the significance of the action, what's the value of the action in that particular religion. So take the time to really understand like why people are doing it. Yeah, let's move beyond tolerance, you know, to actual understanding.
I think my dream would be for everyone to lead with curiosity and for everyone to lead with understanding. I think there is a need for more understanding in this community and with everybody, because we all have different experiences, different lived experiences. I think it's so important for us to understand each and everyone's position and how they grew up and the little stories that make them who they are, so that we can all build towards a more understanding society.
Faris, Vid, Gordon, Nurul, thank you for sharing your stories today. I think there's always more that we can listen to and learn, and I'm quite sure your sharing today will help. Thank you.
Have you experienced something similar? Share with us your story in the comments below. And don't forget to like and share the video. Click the subscribe button below to follow our conversation.